Viewfinder is one of the most ambitious games of the year so far. It's a puzzle game made by a small team, and when you first see it, you can't help but compare it to Portal. In my opinion, it doesn't fully stick the landing, but it's definitely still worth checking out.
Hang on, did you just shift reality?
And it's just so impressive that a game like this actually exists. Now obviously this is a new puzzle game, so I don't want to spoil the solutions too much, so I won't be showing every single level, but that means if you end up picking up the game yourself, then there'll be loads you've not seen. With this game, I don't know if I'm just like a secret genius or something like that, but I hardly actually had to think about most of the level solutions. I know that I said that humanity being easy was good, but with this game it felt like I was kind of just on autopilot and I never had to think about the levels. Despite that, I feel like the game was a joy to go through. Now to get the platinum, you essentially just have to beat the game, get some collectibles which can be easily cleaned up after the game, and do specific things in certain levels, so it's a very simple list. Now let's start the game and explain how it works. The main mechanic of the game is placing 2D photos of objects into the world, which then become a 3D space. It is kind of hard to explain at first, but you'll understand it when you watch the video. Now let's get into the game and get that platinum. So in every level, to beat it, you have to get to the teleporter, and sometimes you have to power it with batteries first. So you can see here, there's a battery behind this wall, but it's too far away to jump to. Thankfully the game has a cool rewind function which I love. It makes the game feel so much more experimental, and it lets you kind of do whatever you want without fear of failure. So we found out early on, if you place a photo down that has empty space in it, then it will actually delete whatever you place it on. So we can use this knowledge to delete these walls and get the batteries to exit the level. And soon we entered our first hub. So there's 5 hubs in total, each with about 10 levels or so, and we just need to beat them all. This level's quite weird, so this photo actually has a photo inside of it, so you could essentially place this an infinite amount of times and make an infinite amount of platforms. And just so you know, you can accidentally delete the teleporter, but thankfully if you do that, you can always rewind. This level's quite easy, but we'll be coming back to it later. Then we found out you can use these photocopiers to copy photos, and that means on this level we can make loads of batteries from a single photo. This is what the collectibles are like, by the way. Most of them are just out in the open, easy to find. Some are a bit hidden, but it's not that bad. So we'd finished the first hub, and each hub does have its own set of collectibles, but I thought it'd make more sense if I just continued on and got them at the end of the game. So now onwards to the second hub. This hub actually starts off with levels that are quite similar to Superliminal. If you stand at the correct angle, then these staggered images will actually come together and then materialise into the world. Just so you know, a lot of the trophies are just for doing random stuff in levels like this, so if you see the counter go up by a lot, it's just because I'm doing things like this, and I can't show every single one or the video is going to be so long. Now here, we can take our own photos using these static cameras, and this level is quite simple. Just make some stairs for yourself and then flip the teleporter. And of course, we had to check, can you pet the cat? Yes you can. This level is quite cool. First off, we had to take a picture of the wall and flip it to make a platform, which meant we could place a battery on the platform we'd created, take a picture of that, and duplicate that a bunch of times. And pretty soon, we were headed to the third of the 5 hubs. And in a very Portal moment, we got a camera of our own. Also, it actually was my birthday a few days ago, so if you want to give me a present, then subscribe to the channel, because it means a lot. Now we had our own camera, it meant we could take pictures of anything we wanted. So the first thing I did was create loads of batteries. Bit overkill, but it got the job done. So by getting trophies in the game, you actually unlock different filters for the camera, which I thought was cool. So our pictures now have a warm glow to them. So you can see here, I got these 2 dusting trophies and I got a sepia tone filter for it. One of the collectibles in this level is actually hidden in this screenshot of a Zelda type game, and in this Mega Man one, you can actually get a jump power up. I really love this because you might think it's just like a fun Easter egg, but you can actually use the power up to make the level easier. And before finishing the level, we took our 25th photo, and we got another reminder that I'm getting older every day. And an hour then, we were on to the second last hub. One of the gimmicks for these levels is that blue objects can't be photographed, and you also can't delete any of these blue walls, but thankfully there's always a solution. At this point, I realised there was a trophy for rewinding for 2 minutes at one time, so I put the controller down and then we found this PC in a later level, and then a subliminal message appeared. You know what to do. 2 hours in, we had now taken 100 photos, and we made our way to the final hub. Like I said, I don't want to show too much of them later in the game, however there will still be some slight mechanic spoilers in this section, just in case you want to jump ahead. I stupidly set the filter to watermelon, which was so ugly and I wish I could rewind time to stop myself from doing it. One mechanic that I think is amazing is that if you take a picture with yourself in it, you can actually place it down and then teleport using it. The main reason that I love this is because obviously you have to use this mechanic to finish these levels, so the game teaches you it now, but theoretically you could have discovered this by yourself earlier on. Like I said, the game just feels so experimental, and it feels like you're kind of doing everything for the first time and no one's ever done it before. This is how ugly that filter is, by the way. Now we were at the final level, which is 9 levels put together, and you need to finish them all within 5 minutes. And I know I was saying how easy the game is, but yeah, I failed it the first time. But because I knew the solutions now, I managed to do it on my second attempt with loads of time to spare. So yeah, obviously I do have some issues with the game, but getting to the credits makes you realise how small the issues actually are. There's one designer on this game, with 2 programmers and a small art and narrative team. I just found that so amazing and inspiring. I was expecting kind of like Valve level quality out of a new studio in Dundee. Just think, if this game does well and they get a bigger budget, how impressive is their next game going to be if they scale up? The game's £20 on both PS5 and Steam, and in my opinion, it's well worth checking out and supporting Sad Owl Studios. Now, after the credits, we're basically just in cleanup mode, and the first thing I did was change the filter back to warm. So the collectible stacker isn't great to be honest. You can see which ones you've got in the hub, but the guides just call them Duck 1, Duck 2, so it's hard to tell which ones you have. Thankfully, it's quite quick to jump down to levels. Remember this one? So there's a trophy for placing the photo within a photo 15 times, and it seems easy enough, so that's exactly what we did. 1, 2,
Photos are back to normal
3,
too. Excellent. Should be smooth sailing from here. Hopefully.
and it crashed. Kind of expected that. We'll get back to that later. But just as an example, this is how quick the collectible hunt is if you use a guide. And now we're back for round 2. And it didn't crash this time. The collectibles in this hub are all types of fruit, and you can see that I only had the orange one, so it was easy to tell which ones I still needed, and we quickly ran through the levels and got them. Back in the level with the jump powered up, you can actually take a photo of it and duplicate it a bunch of times, and once you picked up enough, you can jump all the way to the moon. One of the last trophies we needed was to finish one of these timer levels at the last second. At first, I tried to actually time it out, but then I realised you can use the rewind function to make it so much easier. I messed up the first time, but quickly jumped back in and it worked. And by going into another Zelda type world, we got our last collectible. And of course, just like in any game, we had to check, is there anything behind the waterfall? And now, to finish off the game and get the platinum, all we had to do was to complete a level under 10 seconds. I went back to some of the early levels, but I couldn't do them fast enough, and I found online that chapter 3, level 2-4 is the best one to use for this. And after 3 hours and 16 minutes, we had got the Viewfinder platinum.